Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to the first episode of the Twos Preview. This will be a regular weekly show on the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name is Jake, and today we are going to be looking at the VFL men's and women's fixture releases, which happened just yesterday. If memory serves me correct. So we're going to have a look at both of those fixtures. If you would like VFL coverage on the Hoops Crew in the 2024 season, then make sure that you go on over and sign up to the Hoops Crew Patreon channel. In addition to getting your extended podcasts and video shows, your early access stuff, bonus content, in 2024, I'm going to be doing Patreon subscriber exclusive coverage of the VFL men's and women's season. So if you want more of this VFL men's and women's goodness, go on over and subscribe to the Hoops Crew Patreon channel. All right, no more mucking around. Let's get into it. We're going to start by having a look at the VFLW fixture release. As I said, these came out yesterday. And what I've done here is for video audience, broken it down with a bit of color coding. I'll walk the audio listeners through that as well. So basically, we've got opponents and venue listed there. And I've just shaded the opponents in either red, green, or yellow. Now, red means that team was a finals team last year. So red, danger, danger, danger. Good team, potentially. Green is a team didn't make finals last year. So green for good. Should be in, with a chance of winning those games. Should maybe be favored in those games. And then yellow is a team that we didn't play last year. In the venues column, green is for home game, red is for away game, yellow is for a neutral venue. So let's crack into it. The season for the VFLW team opens on Saturday, the 23rd of March, with a game against Carlton at Kardinia Park. It's followed up a week later with a game against Box Hill down at Kardinia Park. So back-to-back home games to open the season for the VFLW team. Then it's a bit of a road stint. We go at Trevor Barker Beach Oval to play the Southern Saints. We go down to Colac to play Darebin. Now, I believe that the Colac game is technically, I think, a Geelong home game. I think that's how that works. I don't think it's a Darebin home game. I think this is one that the Cats have moved down to Colac. I could be wrong there, but I think that's the way it works. Then it's on the road again, Tom Wills Oval to play the GWS Giants, who are playing in the VFLW competition for the first time. It's interesting. They're only going to play 5 games in the VFLW this season, GWS. So they're not playing a full 14-game slate. Haven't played in the VFLW since 2019. So kind of an interesting one, just sliding into play the 5 games. I'm personally in favor of making, I don't know, I can go either way on the AFL reserves comp versus a VFL competition. Sometimes I think we should separate it out, just have your 18 teams from the AFL have a reserves comp in the men's and women's, and then let the other state leagues happen around that. I get there's probably all sorts of logistical reasons why that doesn't happen. But anyway, a bit of fixturing weirdness, I guess, where we've got GWS coming in for just the 5 games in the VFLW season. So after that, we're on the road again, Arden Street Oval to play North Melbourne. On the road again the following week against Carlton at Icon Park. So the first 7 games of the season, the first half of the season goes Kardinia Park against 2 teams that made finals last year. So that's nice. It's always nice to get some of the more, difficult opposition at your home ground. But then it's like a string. It's 4 out of 5 of the next 5 games are genuine away games for the Cats, with that one game down at Colac. So that's a tough stretch there Thankfully, 3 of those games come against teams that didn't make finals last year, though North Melbourne, in Arden Street Oval is a tough proposition. Um, the next half of the fixture goes home at Gadinia Park against Collingwood, then 2 away games at Casey Field against the Casey Demons, at DSV Stadium against Williamstown, then back home at Deakin University to play the Dogs, away to Box Hill at Box Hill City Oval, home at Deakin University against Port Melbourne, and then an away trip to Windy Hill to take on Essendon. So it's it's a bit of a mixed bag, I suppose. The Cats are playing 5 teams that didn't make finals last year, and they're playing 8 teams that did make finals, 1 game against a side that wasn't in the comp, that being GWS. The home away split is pretty interesting. 5 genuine home games, as in 5 games that are happening in Geelong. The 1 down in Colac, the rest on the road. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Cats cope with that stretch from sort of rounds 3 through to round 7 with 5 games outside of Geelong. Um, as I said, there's a mix of softer and stronger opponents in that run. But then you've got a real murderer's row after that. So after those 5 weeks where you're away from home, then you go Collingwood, who was so strong last year. Casey, who was strong for the first part of the season, then dropped off. Um, and then Williamstown, who handled Geelong pretty well last time they played. So I think it's a good fixture ultimately for the Cats. I think there's positives to be found. Something to think about too is the way in which the AFLW listed players will come in and out of this team. It's something that happened last year. The Cats got off to a real hot start. Had a lot of the AFLW players playing in the VFLW side, and then preseason starts for the AFLW. If it's anything like last year, it was a relatively long preseason. I kind of feel like they started pulling players out for some of that preseason in like May, and so the team fell in a bit of a hole in the second half of last year. They were looking set for a top 2 finish in the first half of the year and ended up missing finals across the second half of the year. So you've got to make hay while the sun shines, and get those wins on the board early. But then it's how you manage that back end. And there's tough games in there. And you look at matches like that one against Williamstown. That's a big danger game. Collingwood beat us twice last year. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this team tackles this slate, given some of the players they lost. And obviously, I'm going to be doing a full preview of the VFLW season in a couple of weeks. But the Cats did lose some significant pieces, which is great for those players who have gone on to get AFLW opportunities elsewhere. That's the whole point, is if you want to level up, that you get the opportunity to level up. It's just going to be interesting to see how strong the side is this year, and then how strong the team remains once the AFLW talent starts getting drawn back up into their preseason across the second half of the year. Just to offer a bit of context with these opponents and how the Cats fared against them last year. So Geelong played all of these teams that are on their 2024 fixture at least once last year, except for GWS. So Carlton, the Cats beat Carlton in their only game. They drew with Box Hill in their only game. I think it was 27 apiece. They beat the Southern Saints. They had 2 wins against Darebin. As I said, didn't play GWS. Lost the first game against North, then won the second one with a kick after the siren with Liv Ciccolini, I believe it was, kicking the goal after the siren. Collingwood played them twice, lost both times. Probably had chances in the first game. down at Deakin University to beat the Pies, but just couldn't get the job done. And then the second time we played them up in Collingwood was a rout. Lost to Casey in our only match against them. Lost to Williamstown in the only match against them. Beat the Bulldogs. Lost to Port Melbourne and beat Essendon. So in 2023 against these opponents, Geelong had a 7-6-1 record. So, you know, it we got our wins, but it was challenging as well. It's a challenging group of teams. The VFLW can be a fairly even competition, particularly depending on how many AFLW players the AFLW aligned clubs can pull in any given week. So 7-6-1 against these same opponents last season. I think we're going to have to do better than that to make finals. I think, you're going to have to be 9, 9-5 or something like that. You've got to be able to turn that draw probably into a win, one of those losses into a win. If you can get to 9-5, and then you've got a chance, I suppose. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go. Let's move across into the VFL men's side of the equation because they had their fixture launched as well. As usual, like it's a long season, 18 games or whatever. It is for the men's, but this is how that one runs. Same deal. The teams in red are finals teams from last year. The teams in green did not make finals. Same deal with the venues as well. Green for home, red for away. So something that immediately stands out is that round 14 through to round 21, all venues and times are still to be confirmed. We know the opponents from rounds 14 to 21, but we do not know where and when we'll be playing them. Season opens back-to-back games against teams that made the finals last year, but both of them down at Kardinia Park. So you like that. They've got Werribee, who Geelong was one of only 2 teams to beat Werribee last season. So we get them down at Kardinia Park to start the season on Saturday, the 23rd of March. Then we go the Box Hill Hawks at Kardinia Park to follow that up on the 30th of March. Then it's a stretch of 3 away games. Northern Bull Ants at Genus Steel Oval. You've got the Brisbane Lions, finals team from last year, at Brighton Homes Arena. Carlton at Icon Park. Then it's a home game against Frankston on Sunday, the 5th of May. Frankston didn't make finals last year, but they gave us a really good game. I think we eventually won 72-70 in that match, if my memory serves me correct. Then there's a bye for the Cats in round 7. They come back with a game on the road in Piranha Park against Coburg on Saturday, the 18th of May. A week later, GWS Giants come to Kardinia Park. The following week, it's Richmond down at Kardinia Park. We drew with Richmond last year in what was a pretty good game. Probably should have won. Up against the Sydney Swans at the SCG the following week on the Sunday, the 9th of June at the SCG, that one. Then a bye week in round 12 for the Cats. 3 buys for the Cats. 4 if you count the competition-wide bye when the VFL plays the SANFL a couple of weeks into the season. We're back against Port Melbourne at ETU Stadium on Sunday, the 23rd of June. And then it's all dates, times, and venues to be confirmed after that. Round 14 is against Sandringham. Then we've got 4 games in a row against teams that made finals last year. We've got Box Hill, Collingwood, Footscray, and North Melbourne. A bye in round 19, and then we finish with games against Carlton and Sandringham. So it's an interesting mix for the Cats. Plenty of games against teams that made finals last year, including a double header against Box Hill. But then, plenty of teams that didn't play finals last year. It'll be interesting to see what that home away split is from rounds 14 to 21, given that we've got what five five of the first 9 games of the season are down at Cardinia Park for the Cats. You would imagine it'll probably be split the other way across the back half of the year. But I suppose the two stretches I sort of look at that stand out to me at the moment are Sunday, the 14th of April to Saturday, the 27th of April, where we go at Northern Bull Ants, at Brisbane Lions, at Carlton. Um, unless the Bull Ants have made massive, massive strides, the Cats would expect to go and win that one. But then tricky fixtures against Brisbane in Brisbane and Carlton at Icon. If you could get out of that stretch 2-1, that'd be great. If you could get a win against the Northern Bull Ants and then split the games against Brisbane and Carlton, 2-1 out of that stretch would be good. And then the other one that stands out to me is that month of games against teams that made finals last year: Box Hill, Collingwood, Footscray, and North Melbourne from rounds 15 to 18. That could really be a stretch that shapes whether you're going to figure in finals or not, and just how deep into finals you might go for this team, because all of those sides were really challenging for the Cats last year. Speaking of last year, let's have a look at how Geelong fared against these opponents in 2023. Well, the Cats went 8-5-1 against the teams that they've got on the fixture this year that they also played last year. Only played any of these sides once. There were no double ups last year against any of these opponents. They beat Werribee, as I said, one of only 2 teams to beat the Tigers last year. They lost to Box Hill. They beat the Northern Bull Ants. They lost to Brisbane. Had wins against Carlton, Frankston, Coburg, and GWS. The draw against Richmond. The win over Sydney. The win over Port Melbourne. Did not play Sandringham. And then losses against Collingwood, Footscray, and Melbourne. So a record of 8-5-1 against these same teams in 2023. I think they can probably go a couple of wins better. If I'm being honest, they should have turned the Richmond draw into a win. I think they can do that this year. And then I would hope that they can pinch one of Collingwood, Footscray, or North Melbourne. Even one of the games against Box Hill, that'd be nice to get a win over the Hawks. So if they can get to that double-digit win this season against these opponents, I think they'll be in pretty good stead to try and make a run at the finals. But it will be tricky, given those 2 patches that I outlined as sort of key areas of focus. That 3-game away stint where you've got the Bull Ants, the Lions, and the Blues. We want to go 2-1 in that stretch, I reckon. And then that 4-game stint. It'd be nice to think you could split that 2-2, and you might need to, I think, to make finals. But that's going to be a tough run against 4 teams in the course of a month who all made finals last year and all who beat the Cats pretty handily last year. So a testing time at that part of the season. All right. That is it. That is my fixture release reaction, both the VFL men's and women's teams. As I said, if you want to get more VFL men's and women's coverage from the Hoops crew in 2024, make sure you go on over and subscribe to the Patreon. $5 a month. You get all your normal extended podcasts and video shows, early access content, and all that sort of thing. And Patreon subscriber exclusive coverage of the VFL men's and women's season from the Hoops crew. So that'll do it for me on the first episode of the Twos preview. I'll be back in the next couple of weeks with a season preview for both the men's and women's. And then we'll be off and running with previews and recaps of all the VFL men's and women's games in 2024. Until next time, go Cats!